All right, guys, thank you so much for coming on today. It's Sarah at carnivore.yogi, and I have got Caitlin here with me, who is from grassfedgirl.com. I will put a link to her channel below. We have been friends and kind of cheering each other on for the last year or more, really, with the carnivore journey. She's got an amazing book out right now that I will also link below this video. But her and I, we kind of put our heads together, talk quite a bit, and we both put up some question boxes of, what are the questions that you're getting the most of? So we're just going to kind of chat, and we don't agree on every single thing, but a lot of things we view similarly. So we're just going to chat. And the big thing is macros today. That's what you guys really want to know about. So we're going to dive into depth. But for people who don't know you, Caitlin, you want to introduce yourself briefly?
Yes, thank you for having me, Sarah. It's awesome. I have a similar story as you, and I think that's why we became friends. We had a lot of chronic dieting in the past, and then a lot of over-exercising and that kind of stuff. And then when I was about 30, I got diagnosed with Hashimoto's. It's a thyroid autoimmune disease, and that made me realize and really search deeper for health answers because I wasn't really getting them from my doctor. And so I started writing about my journey on my blog, grassfedgirl.com. And that led me eventually, after a long time, I was paleo and keto, and then now carnivore. I'm not sure. It's since October of 2018. I'm not good with counting or math, but and I saw dramatic improvements on carnivore. I had chronic constipation, and that was really a big symptom of Hashimoto's as well. So I've been able to resolve that, and I lost weight and felt great and everything. But like Sarah, I had to tweak some things along the way and experiment on myself. And so, we just want to help you not make any mistakes or not be afraid to test on yourself and find the best answers for you, and not always just don't always just, you have to be your own advocate and not just listen. And you have to listen to your body and be individual and test and experiment. So I think we have a lot of common ground, and you'll hear also about our different experiences today.
Yes, that's such a great intro. And I think it's so important. The big message is, you have to figure this stuff out for yourself. We all have different health histories. I don't have the Hashimoto's in my background because I probably would have done a lot of other things differently. But yeah, for you guys that are watching, always be your own advocate. Don't be afraid to test things out, to confirm your symptoms. There's a bunch of resources out there now that you really can take control of your own health. So that's important to remember also. Yeah. So Caitlin, let's just jump in. What are your thoughts on tracking? First, we'll talk about tracking, and then maybe we can get into those fat protein ratios and break that down a little bit. So what are your thoughts on tracking, especially people who are concerned about weight loss?
I mean, I think there's two or three phases, really. I mean, when you first start carnivore, I think it's really important. I mean, for maybe 6 months or even a year, just to kind of eat and listen to your body. Like, I do eat a lot of fat. And I've always gravitated towards fat and fatty meats because I don't feel well if I don't eat a lot of fat. Always eaten a lot of eggs and sometimes add butter. And for me, weight loss is not my biggest goal because I have had so many health struggles that there's certain things I'm not willing to do. I just draw the sand, and if I don't feel good, I'm not really willing to do it. I'm not willing to suffer the way I used to, where I was running marathons and starving myself. I just don't care enough anymore to do that. So, and I'm happily married and whatever, I'm not single and trying to fit into a, whatever. certain size or anything. So, I mean, I have different goals and everybody's in a different phase of their life too. I'm not trying to win a Miss Fitness competition or anything like that. My biggest goal is to stay healthy into old age and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, you have to look at where you're at in your life and what you're looking for. But anyway, I think the first part of carnivore is a huge adjustment. You're cutting so many foods. Your body is, I don't, I think most people start from keto or an ancestral type approach. I think it's really hard to start from a sad diet because it's just so counterculture. It's just so different. And if you're addicted to carbs, I mean, it's a hard transition. So I definitely think that by throwing in counting and macros and tracking is extra stress that you don't need in the beginning. Now, after you have learned all the basics, are interested in aesthetic goals, so you could do some tracking or logging in or whatever. I mean, I definitely did a few times just to see how many I just want to know like what ballpark of the calories, because I pretty much eat the same thing every, like what ballpark of calories am I in? What ballpark of fat am I in? How many protein? Just to get an idea, because there was so much talk about it all the time that I did want to just see, okay. And I mean, I average about 2,500 calories. And I mean, I'm usually about 60-40 fat to protein. And I eat about 100, and this is just average, 150 grams of protein. But my fat is always is higher, not like a ton higher, but, and I feel pretty good like that. Now, if I do eat leaner, I kind of feel it. I get hungrier faster. So, and then I'm like, did I have something like too lean? Or maybe, especially if you're out and about, it's harder to get good fats and things. So, maybe if you ate in a restaurant or something and you only got a chicken breast, you're like, wait, so you're like, okay, something's off. But eating at home, I find it's pretty easy. And so far I have felt pretty good. And, of course, electrolytes are a huge thing too if you're not feeling well. I know I had to take that really seriously at first and learn a lot about it. And in my book that Sarah about, we have a drink recipe for people so that they can take that. It has all the different electrolytes in it, so they don't have to, so they have those crashes and everything when they're.
I think that's great. I think people get so caught up in the weight loss thing and then the wanting to fit into the macros. They might go on like a macro calculator. And I think that causes a lot of extra stress for people. I think there's a difference between kind of like fine tuning and finding what works best for you. And just going straight into all that tracking. And one thing that I see a lot of is people are so like up here with the podcasts and like looking at other people's Instagram pages, what they ate in a day, and trying to just copy what other people are doing and not actually listening to their own natural body signals. I think that that's causing just a whole lot of problems for people, and for me, I had to kind of tune a lot of stuff out and just listen to what kind of symptoms I was having. And, me with the 60-40 ratio, after a while, I just didn't feel as well. And so I decided to consciously try to go to a higher fat ratio. And, a lot of the questions I get asked are, what kind of fat do you use? It's mostly just raw beef suet and ghee, because I don't really, but dairy and I've kind of come to the conclusion over the last 14 months, it's just not, it does not work well for me. It does give me histamine reactions. And histamine reactions are tricky because you have kind of this like histamine bucket. And so you might be able to have a little cheese. You might be able to have a little dairy, but your bucket eventually gets full. If you have a problem with histamine, your body can't flush that stuff out. And so it's kind of tricky because you'll be all right and you'll be all right. And then boom, you're just not okay, and you're dealing with like maybe eczema or, digestive or bloating. Most of the time it's bloating for a lot of people, but it is, it's those histamines. And so for me, the fats that I use are mainly just beef. You can get beef fat trimmings, you can get raw beef suet, and then ghee doesn't seem to bother me. But I've consciously moved to like a higher fat. But the thing with me is that I'm not really tracking. Like I will say, all right, since I'm doing this, I'll measure out every morning my fat, like whether it's beef trimmings or it's raw beef suet. I'm like, I'm going to eat, this is a 6-ounce thing of raw beef suet, which is a sizable thing. And then here's the meat that I'm going to eat today. You do have to kind of watch your protein portions if you're going to do high fat, because you can't really do high fat and high protein or you will gain weight. Like you got to kind of, you can't push the fat up so much if you're doing, a lot of protein. Because for me, in my experience, I've gained weight doing that. So I just kind of measure out how much fat I want. And then this is how much protein I'm going to eat. I divide it up into 3 meals. This is what I'm doing right now. And then if I'm still hungry, I'll just eat some more fat. I'll grab some more suet or some more trimmings. I don't try to hit specific calorie goal or anything. I'm imagining it's probably between 2,000 and 2,500 a day, similar to what you're doing. But I feel a lot better. My hormones are a lot more functional when I keep the fat a little bit higher, But I don't.
What do you think you're at now then?
I'm probably at like 80-20 and some days even 90-10. But more of the time, probably 80-20.
So how much protein, like in ounces, would that be per meal?
I do, breakfast is a little smaller, maybe like 3 ounces at breakfast. And then lunch and dinner, I'll kind of divide that up, maybe 4 ounces lunch and 4 ounces dinner. And then I'm also doing at least 1 or 2 ounces of like a liver, like beef liver as well. So that's about, it's a lot lower protein than I was doing. I was doing 1.5, 2 pounds of protein a day. And now I've just cut it back. And I actually feel better now. I have a lot more energy. I'm not having like hypoglycemia episodes where I get like hangry and, so it's been a good adjustment for me. It's not for everybody. Some people may want to do a higher protein, but, it's working right now for me to do that.
I think it's good to start with just like regular carnivore or whatever. And then like you ran into some problems, then you were fine tuning, but I think like if I had listened to what you're saying, I'm just being devil's advocate. If I had listened to what you're saying when I started, I would have freaked out because
Yeah.
I cannot handle, because to me that sounds almost like keto. It was like stop with the protein.
Yeah.
And I used to get freaked out on keto and I was like, oh, well, I'm not supposed to eat this much hamburger meat, so I would eat 20 fat bombs instead, or something like that, and be like, okay, well, like for me, I feel like I'm better off just to eat 6 or 8 ounces of hamburger or a 12-ounce steak or whatever, because if I start worrying about it, all those feelings come back, all that restriction, all that anxiety about that, and but I respect Sarah for tweaking and everything and looking for the right thing and for her, because if you do run into problems, it's a good idea to get help or talk to more people or get a practitioner or whatever. Don't just go through, don't just feel bad and think you're doing it wrong. Like, I'm always, it's not just food, it's so many lifestyle things too. Like if I don't sleep good one night, I'm totally jacked up. I'm just a mess, and that'll bring on more cravings, and it's just like a whole thing. If I'm traveling, I get all messed up. Especially if you have autoimmune disease, you're very sensitive to changes in your life or stress and everything. And you have a very stressful situation with your life. So, I applaud you for trying to keep seeking answers and keep tweaking, not just being like, okay, I have this and this and this is going wrong, but not just putting your head down and ramming against the wall. Like, keep trying,
Yeah.
to figure out. And I mean, you've told me before, like that you would experience changes in your cycle.
Yeah.
You're so sensitive that if you change one thing, you have a change in your cycle. I mean, that's immediate feedback from your body. And I think it's that we can all learn from that and listen. And um, anyway, and then like I was saying about the two phases, and then I feel like Sarah's now in the second phase where she is tweaking. She did the regular kind
Yeah.
of follow the blanket advice from everybody, and then now she's fine tuning it for her body. And she's a tweak done a lot of testing on herself. She's done a lot of monitoring with the blood monitor, and those are the kinds of things that tell you what's happening. And then also, I mean, I used to do tons of functional testing. I kind of got burned out on it because I wasn't getting any better. And
Mm.
so I was just like, I'm sick of spending all this money. This was before Carnivore, but I'm so sick of spending all this money on all my digestive problems and all this crap. And I just was always terribly bloated and miserable. And so I've kind of, I mean, I still test my thyroid and stuff, but I kind of had to go away from that for a while because, I've been on this journey for 10 years, and, you just feel like you're throwing money in a fire and you're just like,
Yeah.
forget it, so,
Yeah.
but, Carnivore was really the first thing to help me with my digestive problems. And that to me was life changing. So, and if you have to just changing your macros, that's not a big deal compared to being sick and
Yeah.
constipated all the time. So,
Yeah.
and I mean, my thyroid is doing better than it has in the past. I've been able to lower my medication, and not not on my own. I work with my doctor to lower my medication. So, um, and it's just, and I still test my thyroid every 6 months or so. So, um, yeah. So,
Yeah. I just want to say
did
one
you have specific? Go ahead.
Oh, I just want to say one thing about like the phases of carnivore, that you mentioned. I think it's important, and I may have to do like a completely separate video to address it. Somebody who kind of came from a disordered eating background, that we kind of talked about that of just dieting since a young age, doing Weight Watchers at 9 years old. Phase one carnivore for me, which is what I basically did all of last year and even into this year, which was like no tracking, just eat meat, just eat steak. And it worked really well for me in a lot of ways. And one thing that it really helped me to do is kind of deal with a lot of those food issues, especially when I stopped fasting completely and just was like, gave myself permission to eat, and stopped all the rules and all the timing and all of the like overthinking, which it took me many months into my carnivore journey to finally just chill out and say, oh, I'm not going to do all this extra stuff. I'm not going to set my watch and eat at this time. It took me a long time to get there. And a lot of that helped me, to get to where I am now, where I'm like, okay, really I had to slow down and like, okay, I am listening to my body. And yeah, I had the glucose monitor and my blood sugar was going up overnight. I tested my A1C. My A1C was going up, and so there were some, like you mentioned, some testing metrics that helped me make that decision to switch over to eating how I eat now. And I think if I had tried to start off carnivore eating how I eat now, like it probably would have been a big friggin' disaster, because for me now it's easy. I'm like, I'm just going to measure this fat out and then I'll eat, a certain amount of meat. And I'm in pretty good ketosis now because the fat is so high, because it is more like keto macros. So I don't have like the physical hunger so much. But there's emotional hunger too. And I think that my first year of carnivore and just learning how to have this attitude, and I followed you a lot for that, your kind of laid back attitude about food and food timing and all of that stuff. Like, you've been such a huge inspiration for me in that regard. I don't think I could have to be where I am now without having done that foundational work first. So I definitely wanted to throw that in there for people as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you, thank you. I think that you need the time. Everyone needs the time to heal that relationship with food and to re-nourish your body. I mean, so many of us women on starvation diets for 20 years or since we were, young teens doing things we see on TV or magazines. And so we are so really starving. Our cells are starving for nutrition. Having that time where you just kind of refeed is so important, I think.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I think it's just, and to not worry about the calories and stuff. I mean, I think that's one reason carnivore is so helpful for people, because they can just take a break from all that stuff. And then, like we're saying, later on, once you learn all the basics, you can try different things. I mean, I know I'm talking to a girl in a few days who's doing a fit competition and does carnivore, and she's her, I'm sure, and she's doing that as for fun. I don't know, and I mean, I'm interested to hear what she's doing, but she's very transparent and saying this is not really sustainable. It doesn't feel good to have no fat. And I mean, I liked when she was saying that this is something that I'm going to do forever. It's just getting to my goal, and then I'm going to maybe go back to the way I was, whatever. But so I mean, there's times for fixing things and refining things, and then times for relaxing.
Yeah, I think the big takeaway message, and let me know if you have anything to add to this, is just relax. Just take yourself out of the like diet culture, out of the whole like forcing yourself to do certain things because that's the popular thing to do, and to really, for you having Hashimoto's and that whole just railroaded you, made you pretty much bedridden and unable to participate in life. I think that has been a way that you've had to change the way that you look at food and eating and nutrition. And so I think you have so much wisdom there to share with people, and this amazing laid back attitude about, put away the tracker, put away the counting, don't worry about getting everything perfectly, that I think it comes, and just to be patient.
Yeah, and I think, there's other things people can do. They can add in weights, they can fix electrolytes, they can sleep more, they can, a lot of people are very stressed out about their job in a situation in their life they like. Those are all going to play a factor. I mean, I had to quit my job and start working from home because I was I had, my health was so bad, I couldn't function out in a regular world, So there's so many things that, I was talking to Jimmy the other day about his childhood trauma. So many things that come into play with weight loss, and it's not just about the food. So, it's about being happy a lot of the time and being calm and real. So, I think it's a continual process of refining, and just, don't get so tied to one person's message. Just kind of, educate yourself for sure, but then go back and take, like, if I hear somebody who's super rigid or something, I kind of say, that's not for me. I'm glad to hear that, but it's not for me. And I'm going to take what I know about myself and apply, maybe in pieces, but I'm not going to go hook, line, and sinker, because the person has a different health history and they have, they're a different age, and maybe it's a man, it's a million different things. On carnivore, there's lots of men. Like like Sean Baker, for example, he's a wonderful example of somebody, who's fit and, over 50 and all that. But, he's been an athlete his whole life.
Yeah.
He's a high level surgeon and on and on and on. I mean, if you're not like that, then it's not going to start overnight. I mean, I was listening to Dave Ramsey the other day on the radio or whatever, and he's like, I mean, I don't on YouTube, not on the radio, but he was saying, do what you can with what you've got. Like,
Yes.
you're not going to be Giselle Bundchen tomorrow. That's not. So that, I mean, he's, whatever you think about Dave Ramsey, but he does have some wisdom sometimes.
Yeah.
And so it's funny that he was saying, I'm not gonna. He said, I have a face for radio. It's kind of funny. Like he's like, I'm not gonna win any, People's Man of the Year, whatever.
Awesome. I love it. Well, I think this is so helpful, and hopefully we can kind of help some people who are concerned about macros or, just trying to wrap their head around this whole thing, and maybe they're overcomplicating it a little bit, just to put that message out there that there's not just one way to do this, and that just continue to be your own health advocate. Do testing if you want to confirm stuff. I'll drop some links below if people are interested in doing that kind of thing. But yeah, I think this was helpful, and I will also drop a link below the video for your book and ways people can follow you and contact you. So yeah, thank you for this awesome chat on macros.
Thank you, Sarah. It was fun.
Yeah.
We'll see you soon.
All right.